Okay, how are you doing, guys? So we've got P. How are you doing? So you said you might be able to come to Preston next week. That'd be good if you could come to the meetup. Edward Charlotte, how are you doing? Let me know if you want to join me sometime. I'm just gonna share this out a minute. So on this channel, it's kind of, it's an open discussion. However, I'm not interested in debating with people because to me, it turns into arguments and it ends up kind of diverting from what we really want to be doing, and which is just to kind of spread information out there. And even if people don't really agree with most of it, they can at least get, bits from it. Even if those bits, are only small bits, if it's really quality information, then people can appreciate that and kind of want to learn more about it. And so to anyone that has just come over from the channel, actually it's Avonham Park. I'm thinking of doing it. So Avonham Park, it's near to the city centre. It's down by the river, so you should know where that is. I was thinking of that place, but I thought Avonham would be a better place because it's just, I don't know, it's just a bit easier to get to from the centre. That's all really. So Flatlander, how's it going? So I'll send Edward the link if he wants to come and join me. I'm just gonna do that a second. For some reason when he came on last time, he didn't actually talk. He just kind of, I don't know, maybe because we were like chatting about something and he just didn't have anything to add to it. But yeah, I'll let you come on and talk about what you want to talk about, and anyone else that wants to come on, you're free to do so as long as you provide an email or some kind of address that I can send a link to. Okay, alright, what's everyone up to? Has everyone been keeping busy? Has anyone been looking into anything new recently? I'm gonna put a link to my main channel, I think, if so I can get people over there if they haven't subscribed already to that channel. Because if I'm doing, say, live stuff over here, because I have to be over here for now with the live stuff because of the copyright strike situation, then people might subscribe to this channel but not subscribe to the main one, and I'm just gonna.
Hello.
Oh.
Yo, Jamie.
Yeah, I've been too bad. How are you doing?
I am doing well.
Did you know about this channel? This is my alternate channel for now.
This is a different channel.
Well, this is live channel for now because the copyright strike situation. For whatever reason, somebody's put a copyright strike, so I've got to wait till I think it's November the 6th to get that removed, and then I can start streaming on my main channel again.
That is a bit of bureaucratic nonsense.
Well, I don't know the exact reasons for why, but I did take the video down, the stream that I was doing, the one that had a strike put on it. So I just wish that the person would just respond and try and take responsibility and actually do the right thing.
Silly though. It's so minuscule. I feel copyright violations, especially when it's when you're not making money.
Exactly, I think
it's so ridiculous.
Isn't there a kind of a YouTube policy that if you're not making money off it, you can use whatever you want to use as long as it's for...
I don't think that's quite it. It's how I wish it was.
Well, yeah, I think that's it. Is they say that, you got to put a disclaimer on it or whatever.
Yeah, there's some kind of
convolute it all and try and make it so that you did any kind of snippet of anything that someone puts into it and you're censored.
Yeah, but they are allowed to use a certain amount within a range of free use, but
yeah, I think it's so many seconds or whatever of a clip you can use to.
But we must look at this as also a refraction of the bigger picture of it.
Yeah.
That these kind of draconian, tiny little rules are the kind of rules that are put in place in order to drive us wacky. Why are these things so rigidly held? It doesn't matter. Yeah,
it's it's just too strict, isn't it? It's YouTube should be that. It's like that, probably that teacher you have at school that you absolutely hate because they're so strict, and if you like miss doing one of your questions in homework and they'll give you detention sort of thing.
It's like way inappropriate.
Yeah, it's like that they far too penalise you for the little things, but then the people who are doing the real crimes on YouTube are being let go for whatever reason. It's like, is that just an accident?
No,
that they're just letting these people go, like these troll accounts, like go free, or is it that they're deliberately giving them the upper hand so that they
have the troll accounts
access to do
they
it?
They need to have the troll accounts on there in order to validate the other troll accounts that are being controlled by counter opposition.
My question is, why is YouTube and other social media outlets, why are they letting people create these multiple accounts to go troll? I think if you're
Jamie, you're missing the picture there. The government
what I'm saying is like that they're
people to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that, but I'm just like, I'm just saying, with YouTube's like policies and stuff, is that if you're banned with one of your accounts, you should be banned with all of them.
Why?
Well, if you've gone and like spread abuse, then all of your accounts should be banned. That's what I think should happen. But YouTube's just letting people create more and more accounts.
Too small, Jamie. Look at the bigger picture, right? We don't have a fault with technology. So technology is always going to have devils in it, right?
Well, yeah.
There's always going to be people who can misuse the technology. There's always going to be a false sense of security. There's always going to be sock puppet accounts. As soon as you have a world with avatars, right, you have the ability to have sock puppets. The ability to, like, you're playing Mario Kart, right? You're driving around in Mario Kart. You have 4 players playing, but the 4th controller doesn't have a player. It's just an empty controller. So that's like a sock puppet account. It can be left empty. You can now manipulate the game based on the fact that 4th player exists not being played. This is how you can rig the game. We can rig the game for ourselves if we wish to. We don't need to. We could do that ourselves, but we've not got the energy. So if you know how much energy it would take to have like 8 different accounts on YouTube and you're doing it to go on and just like give hate to people.
Because to me it kind of just shows either desperation,
that's the desperation you're next to. They're not desperate. This is the thing. See, there are people, and but don't look at it as like government, like the government somewhere sitting down going, put 18 people to go on and post memes about flat Earth and globe Earth on YouTube today. Ha 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 ha. No. It's much more divided than that. It's much more at a level of there'll be a wing of the counterculture media in regards to psyops, false flags, and alternative disinfo, and they'll have some people that will be put on. NASA will have a wing of theirs that go on to try and dissuade people away from the ISS and the ISS live feed. It just depends what your platform is. And then there'll be some that see things like your channel, things like Dell's channel, things like Eric Dubay, and they'll come in and attack. And then there'll be some of the flat earthers. There's some people out there who have flat earth channels who are also sock puppet accounts, and they're also actors that are being paid to put out a lot of truth, but are part of the counterculture that make people pay attention to what's happening from inside, so they don't pay attention to the bigger picture. This has always happened. This has always been the way it's put forward.
Yeah, but even talk about it now is kind of missing the bigger picture, because we're kind of feeding into that that trap, isn't it?
Don't see it as a trap. Have it as an awareness. It's not a fear. Like, I know there are wolves in sheep's clothing. I'm not afraid of them.
If you kind of letting it kind of go on, the conversation about that, then you kind of oh shit, I should be talking about such a thing, and I've just been like talking about such a thing for so long, and I'm like been diverted, because of what's been going on, whatever.
Just drawing attention to it.
Well, I think it should be something that obviously the kind of newcomers should be aware of, because not a lot of them are aware of it if you've only been into it for so long, and some of them have just come across this live hangout thing. Even some of them that have been into it for years have only just come across this live thing, because you have to obviously because I just go live filter, and that's how I find all the streams that are going on.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't know about that. A lot of people don't know how to filter the searches. I didn't know that, so I think it was actually about 3 or 4 years ago, maybe, when I found out how to like filter it. But yeah, because you can find out like the new channels and stuff.
I'm saying, like, more importantly, it's people's ability to filter themselves. It's like all you
Yeah,
need to do is go on and like search a channel that's speaking about something, and then you can break down. Like, if there's a lot of people on a channel, there's a reason. Like, there's a reason that people are going and listening to Joe Rogan, right? So when Joe Rogan is talking about something, there's a reason that he's talking about it.
we don't even, it gets like what 20, 30,000, listeners probably in his streams today, right?
Yeah.
How do we even know that if he doesn't even have his? I mean, if you click on it, I mean, I don't watch him, so but I clicked just just to see in it. Obviously, he didn't have a live chat going on,
Yeah.
so you can't actually tell and even if there is a live chat, I suppose a lot of them could be sock puppet accounts and just to kind of have artificial numbers, which may be what's happening with some of the flat Earth channels that are
certainly so
being pumped up to kind of look like there's some kind of authority. When they're actually only maybe getting 30 listeners, when they're being pumped up to have like 500, 600 listeners.
This is how it's always done. So we just have to have the ability to go through. And if it's like you can see more in films nowadays about what's happening on the planet than the news. Like, if you go and watch the alternative fiction media, they are feeding things in as propaganda that are so strong that if you have an awareness of what is happening, you can see why you're being told that. You can see why people are sitting down and taking pleasure at watching a horror film on a Friday night. You can see why people are addicted to like Game of Thrones at the moment. People are being dragged into that because of these incredibly strong turmoils between nations that they are buying up in their day-to-day lives, that they physically feel that and they're living that, and it's a fiction. But they stand as strong against the way that they don't want to hear spoilers about their TV show as they do, or they don't want to hear the truth about their government. The same kind of like naivety of like, oh, don't tell me, and it's like, no, we need to speak about it. Like, this isn't joking. Like, if you're paying NASA, if you're like giving budget money to this organization, you have to be aware of what your money's going toward. I think anyone who's funding an organization needs to be aware of where their money's going towards.
Yeah. So have you been looking into anything recently?
I'll have a look at your list and see if there's anything off the back of it.
Well, yeah. Well, I was just thinking because of diets and stuff, like, because I know you said that did you say that you're like a vegan or something?
I did say I'm a vegan or something.
Yeah.
I am a vegan. I'm feeling pretty complete on what is the best diet, and always will be the best diet.
Because there seems to be some like debate, like over whether it's actually a good diet or whether it's actually some agenda that they're pushing because it's actually not a quote unquote natural diet. And apparently raw meat is the way to go, and raw eggs.
It's not. It categorically is not. The argument that people are using for that is precisely the opposite agenda.
Well, yeah, because they're going about the ketogenic diet, and how if you
it's a diet. Like,
if you
listen to the language of it, it's a diet.
If you're only putting fat into your body, that's the only thing that your body has to burn off. So therefore, you won't put any weight on, and you'll just build muscle, and that's what they believe. But is there any actual scientific proof to back it up?
There's proof to back that up, and there's evidence to back that up, that using ketogenic methods, when your body goes into ketosis, it will start working in ways that will make your body do certain things. Is this the natural?
No, it just seems to me like the fat is actually just a reserve energy, isn't it?
It's essentially what you're doing is you're hacking the body. Why do we need to hack the body?
Because when they say no, the raw meat is natural, and it's like they're saying veganism is the like. I mean, I'm not a vegan. I'm trying to work towards a more healthy diet, but slowly but surely I'm just gonna do that. But it's like I'm finding that the arguments for these diets are really flawed, and these meat, raw meat and raw eggs and what have you, and like you said, hacking the body it's not natural. So why are they saying it's the most natural diet when hacking the body isn't natural? You're supposed to just do what's right for the body, and that's probably the most natural thing to do.
And it's kind of like listening to the argument for like masturbation, right?
Oh yeah, because I wanted to bring that up. The no fap challenge. Have you been taking part part in that or something?
I don't so much as take part in it as I
You just live
follow
it.
chastity. Yeah, I know it is true, and I do whatever I can to abstain from.
So you don't like succumb to urges and things like that.
I very rarely succumb to urges. I have had a few parts where I've not done so well, but for the most part recently, I've been doing very, very well. I'm very clear-headed. And a lot of that has to do with being on a high-fruit diet. When we eat a high-fruit diet, our sexual urges drop considerably. A lot of these sexual urges we have are chemically induced by the foods we eat, by the chemicals we're spraying in our body, by the environments we're in, by advertising and imagery, the films we're watching. Again, go back to something like Game of Thrones. Someone's sitting watching Game of Thrones, they're turned on and they don't even realise it. And then they're going to sleep and they're having a wet dream and they don't realise it's because they're just watching like a pornographic film. It wasn't necessarily something that had sex in it. It doesn't even need sex. It just needs dramatic emotional responses for the physical body to be experiencing, because then it goes into an emotional body and that travels into the astral realm when we're sleeping. It's all very heavily layered and very much satanic. So what I'm saying there essentially is there is a psyops in order to make children and young men masturbate.
Like obviously the push of pornography and stuff, and the kind of the social kind of
normalization,
conformity and all that of it, and it's like, well, all the other cool kids are doing it, so I should take part in that, and it's all bullshit. It's it's all BS belief systems, as
Robert Anton Wilson always says. Don't take anyone else's BS. And it's true, like we have the ability to take on ideological structures and modalities. We have the ability to write, we have the ability to dance, we have the ability to sing, but we are not just a singer, we are not just a dancer, we are not just a writer. We have the ability to do these things. So when we define something simply by the action we are carrying out, it just limits it so much.
I've never resonated with the idea of limitation. It's like, why put yourself in a box? It's like you're worth a lot more than that. And even if you're not right now, you can work towards that.
Yeah. And that's like maybe one of the things there, even just like defining a group of people, right? This is the second that we define a group of people, we are being prejudiced. We have created a value in our head that we are now judging the group of people, any group of people. It doesn't matter what they are. It doesn't even matter if we subscribe to that group of people. We have now created a prejudice. We need to. It's the way that it works. It's not necessarily something that's causing damage. It's just the first layer of prejudice. It is a bias towards a group based on a certain value that we are projecting onto that group. So whether that be veganism, whether that be Nazism, whether that be liberalism, we have created a prejudice. When we see someone and go, oh, that globe earther, don't do that. Refer to them as someone
people have assumptions. Like it's like when people, they think about the vegan community and they think of them all as being these righteous kind of do-gooder type people who are just kind of like sort of kind of it's like, oh, look at me, I'm not, but then
so my view of vegetarians, I didn't know what a vegan was. I didn't know if there was vegans when I was younger. But vegetarians when I was younger, I thought were like the kind of people who broke into like shampoo factories and freed the rabbits, or went to the local zoo and stole the monkey, but just the monkey.
You couldn't be more wrong, could you? It's like that's the preconception. It's like when people think, oh, flat earthers, they think that that ships will fall off the end of the earth and all that bullshit.
But the response there, and one of the first responses, is usually humour. It's consistently. It's usually, see when you're trying to have a serious conversation with someone about it.
They're not attacking the claims, that they're attacking a straw man.
Yeah. It's like they just sound like a really hack comedian, like some just shit comedian, like in a basement in the 80s, being like, oh, you know what these flat earthers believe? Oh, you heard this? You heard this? Huh? Yeah. Oh, they believe the Earth is flat, huh? They believe that we can't fly on spaceships. They don't believe that astronauts exist. I've met one. What are they, idiots? And you're just like, this is a joke. This is a parody. I'm not coming at this from an angle that I picked up a stick of chewing gum in the street and it had a little look into flat Earth written on it, and I jumped on YouTube, and an hour later I'm like, oh, I believe it's something that is true. I hate when it's referred to as flat Earth theory, as opposed to what? There's no. It's not a theory. You go
it's
outside.
not
The Earth is
global
flat.
Earth theory versus flat Earth theory. It's like people create this sort of false dichotomy, and that's why I entertain these debates and things, because it's like can they really both be true? I mean, it's almost as if it's like that, and it's like some kind of subjective thing, and it's like you're trying to argue your subjective experience instead of actually kind of keeping people grounded to like the claim. It's like
it's even like keeping
because if they can't, kind of
into the sky,
use NASA and use sky as proof, then they've really got nothing.
They can't trust their own experience, Jamie.
Yeah, and it's like they can't, stick to the claim of Earth. What shape is Earth? We're not talking about the sky. It's like Earth is, something that we can actually kind of measure to an extent, but it's obviously not something that we can measure the whole thing, and that's obviously limitations, perspective.
It's just how difficult it is to do that, right? We say things like, oh, they measured this, they measured that. It is so difficult to measure things. It's one of the most difficult things to do, even from a philosophical viewpoint of what it is to measure, the measurement problem of like creating a measurement system. It's completely arbitrary. A centimetre is arbitrary, an inch is arbitrary. Kelvin, Fahrenheit, a Celsius, they're arbitrary, but they have things that they make them more advantageous. For instance, Celsius is advantageous because 100 is an easy number to remember. So Celsius boils at 100 and it freezes at 0. It makes it easier for us, It has some advantages to it. Just like 12 months in a year, it has some advantages to it. But we can't sit down and talk with someone and for them to objectively state that 12 months exists in a year in the world. Trees don't know it's January. It's just, think of it outside the concept of linguistic abstractions that humans have created. It just doesn't exist. But in the same way, neither does time. And that's fine. But it exists as an abstraction. We can create these fictions, but it is just a fiction. We need to find ways to differentiate between that.
Joe, how's it going?
All right, Jamie, how are you?
Not bad. It's been a while.
Very, yeah. It's been a couple of months, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been a few things have come along in my life that has meant that I just could not devote any time to this subject, mate.
Well, you got to do what you got to do, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a long story. I'm not going to bore you with it, but
well, you're back now anyway. So
what's that?
But you're back now anyway. So kind of. Well,
I'm
yeah,
not 100%.
Not 100%. Yeah. So.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm still a total flat earther. There's no going back once you realise this reality.
You haven't been convinced by LSC, have you, to fall into his his concave cult?
Say that again. I didn't. Sorry.
Yeah, you haven't fallen into LSC's concave cult, have you?
Oh, you know me, mate. I don't fall into any rabbit holes that don't hold water.
Literally, because the concave is a reverse of the ball Earth.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I'm not going there, mate. It's
because the planes would have to be dipping upwards.
Right.
And it's like
any model, let's just say it this way, any model which dictates water does not remain flat and level, I will reject. The minute someone brings a model that states water goes this way, that way, wavy,
to be honest, though, obviously on small scales it does have some kind of variations, but that's just due to tides and things that cause it to kind of, but that's obviously an immense amount of force that whatever's doing it's obviously a kind of,
it's not being pulled to a central point with a force known as gravity.
Because that's just it's just another scapegoat, because they had to probably invent that because they literally wouldn't have been able to get away with the ball Earth lie for so long if they wouldn't have gotten away with it at all if they'd have not come up with gravity, because we kind of wish we would be floating, because then there'd be no way of telling us that we're on a ball, because then it's like, well, there is no gravity, so we're not on a ball.
The thing is, right? The thing is, bottom line, water does not have any magnetic properties. All right, so it cannot conform to any magnetic.
Well, yeah, because if they say, well, it's not magnetism though. It's gravity's a different thing. It's magic bendy space time.
Right. Right.
But it is that thing, as you're saying. What was your name, sorry?
Joe.
Joe. It was that thing you were saying, Joe. When people picture it being bigger, they can imagine this fictional thing.
Yeah.
They're just not grasping that nature is fractal across all nature.
Right.
That if a tiny little tree can be shown to support itself, I can imagine that tree being 27,000 miles wide. That's possible because it's using the structure of geometric patterns that nature produces in order to balance itself perfectly.
Right.
Just like if I seen a human that was 100 foot high, as long as he has the same proportions as me, they would just have the same issues as me.
Mm-hmm.
And people would say, oh no, but the gravity on Earth would be too much for them. And it's like, oh, give me a break. Like, what are you talking about? You don't understand what you're talking about. And I do wonder with the stuff with like Admiral Byrd with talking about giants and whatnot at the North Pole and flying inside there.
Well, some say it's disinformation and all that.
I could see that definitely. But at the same point, it makes sense to me, like the notion of giants there. I've kind of wedged in the conversation of giants.
Well, some say that, dinosaurs, it's a cover up for giants or something like that. And
I could see that.
I mean, obviously it's just a rabbit hole, but
the water holds flat in that rabbit hole.
Or it could just be to kind of perpetuate this idea of evolution, because
But don't even think of
they have to try and come up with these mythical beings to kind of fill in the gaps of the theory.
If you've got a 1,000-year-old tree and then you kill that 1,000-year-old tree, whenever you've got a billion one-year-old trees, it makes sense that really, really old tree existed at some point, that there was a really, really old human. Like, I don't think that the oldest human that ever existed was like 150. Like, I think that I'm like, nah. Our planet's been not a good place for, our plane has not been in a good place for a long while. So I think if we went back...
I think it goes back quite a while, till you kind of get to the sort of more, like, I suppose the advanced civilizations, because someone talk about, obviously, Egypt and how, at one time they had these ancient civilization.
I've got a bit sceptical about Egypt recently. I know one thing, I'm not sure if I've spoken about this on your channel before, Jamie.
I've looked into, so...
Have you looked into the Sphinx before?
No, what's...
The Sphinx is like 150 years old.
Yeah, it's been modified throughout history.
Yeah, it was built as it was discovered.
Yeah.
A head was placed on top of like some stone, and then stonemasons, chiseled down and built paws slowly over like 80 years or something like that. And bit by bit, as they revealed it, they released like propaganda, like drawn postcards that they would send around to places like with the pyramids in the background. But when you see a photograph of the pyramids and the Sphinx, you can see clear that the head's just been placed on top. And then you look at the proportions of it. That is not geometrically perfect. Go and look at the Sphinx. Search Sphinx on Google Earth. It is not the image you have in your head. You've got images of you've seen on like a cartoon or something like that.
But it's Mandela effect.
Oh yeah, don't get into that. That's what they'll tell us. They'll tell us the Mandela effect has changed all the images on Google Earth of satellites to look fake.
Yeah, because the Mandela to me is probably, there's some truth to it, but it's not what you think. It's not this like, CERN, manipulating, trying to meld like a sort of other universe in with this one, and
but that's
manipulate kind of universes and things. It's more just that they're literally changing the reality in front of our eyes. Well, the fake reality that we're being.
It's just the notion there that they would sit there right with this CERN looking at the Higgs boson or whatever, like trying to shoot matter into space time and change the reality of multiple dimensions. And what it does is change Forrest Gump quotes. Like no. Like, give me a break.
No, to me that's all distraction from the you might say the bigger picture, whatever. it's that.
I think one thing we should really consider, guys and girls and everyone in the chat, is this. If we're going to accept that 500 years ago, the majority of the population accepted the reality of a flat stationary plane, and then suddenly, the heliocentric model was introduced, slowly and surely was accepted, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to pose this proposition.
Go for it, Joe.
From 500 years ago, right, from that point, and you go back from 500 years ago and backwards, that's where we need to seriously doubt history.
Yeah.
Because at the point where they decided to change the place we live from a flat plane to a heliocentric model, there has to have been a major reason for doing that.
Yeah. So you think that the geocentric sphere was also part of the deception?
How do you mean?
As in the non-moving sphere, when they believed that the sun was going over a sphere Earth.
Right.
Because that was like the timeline where after they were believing in the flat Earth, and they started to believe it was a sphere, but then the sun was orbiting over the Earth, and then they believed in the heliocentric model where the sun was stationary, and
what I'm saying,
and then they kind of made it to where like the sun was so it's like they kept adapting it to kind of fit their agenda.
Well, yeah, they kind of did, because at one point they said the sun was 1 million miles away. Then suddenly it was 12 million miles away.
They started to increase the distance.
Point where it's 93 million miles away.
They're going to say it's like 100 million miles away soon. They keep increasing it.
Right.
Bit by bit.
But Jamie, here's my point, right? If we go back 500 years, I think that was a pivotal point. Something major happened globally, and I pardon the pun there, right? Okay, I'm fully aware what I just said. What I did it intentionally. What I'm trying to say is that 500 years ago, there must have been a social, across the plane, a reason for them to introduce a ball Earth, right? So what I'm saying is, from 500 years ago and prior to that, right, the place we live in and know of was a completely different realm.
For all we know, this whole kind of, this timeline could have even been fake,
Absolutely.
Even up to the 1700s. I mean, I think that, our quote-unquote true history may only go back, 200 or 250 years. And after that, it's kind of starts to get really unreliable because, it's like, how will we really know any of this stuff's real? Because it's not in our direct experience or any of our ancestors' direct experiences either. It's like... Right.
But that's my point, though. That's my point, though. If 500 years ago, from 500 years ago to this present day, right, they have orchestrated our history and our knowledge of history. What I'm trying to say here is, from 500 years ago and prior, we don't have a clue. And I'm bringing this up, right, because of the comment just made about pyramids, which was apparently thousands of years ago, right?
Well, some actually had this other theory that they're actually way older than what they say, and they're more like 35,000 years old or something.
That's what they're saying, though, Jamie. Right, I'll explain what's happening in the culture at the moment. Right, so back in like the 60s and 70s, they looked at the Sphinx, and there was these two leading archaeologists. One of them was saying like the Sphinx was like 10,000 years old, and the other one was saying like, no, it must be like 15,000 years old. Right, fast forward to the present day, there's archaeologists that have been fighting that no, based on the the limestone on the back of the Sphinx, the damage that has been done by rainfall means that the limestone wasn't available in Egypt at that point, and the damage done by rainfall was when Egypt was still luscious green, which would have been like 35,000 years ago. So they're saying it would have been dated even further back, and they wonder how much bigger the structure was before it was that.
Yeah, so do you think it's just like another like...
It's just another further, it's older and older and older.
That they're trying to get people sucked into.
It's so difficult. Like, we can cut open a tree and we can see how many years old it is based on how many rings in it. I don't recommend doing that, and I don't wish anyone to cut open anything, because that's not how you learn how something works. You learn how something works based on observing it working naturally in flow with nature. You don't cut open a frog to work out how a frog works. You just watch it work.
Yeah.
So whenever we're watching nature, we can see how it works. We don't need to know how old it is. But whenever a dominant man's trying to look impressive, he comes into the culture and say, I have killed 10,000 ox. And they're going, wow, how many is that? And it's like, more than you can count. I have killed 1 billion people. Wow, that's so many. It's whatever sticks in the mindset. 70 times 70 times 70 angels came upon, and it's just to create the vision, and certain numbers have certain geometric patterns associated with them.
The other problem with the pyramids is this, right? You have to consider this, that each block was around 2 tons in weight, right? And then you have to also consider, nowhere in your history books does it tell you or show you where they quarry all of these materials and then, right, traverse them over hundreds of miles, okay? Now, we're led to believe that thousands of slaves built these pyramids, okay? So we need to kind of like, it's almost like coming into when you first realize about the flat earth, your mind blows and it pops and you go, whoa, hang on a minute, this ain't sitting right. And you need to do the same with history, right? You need to question what we've been told and how these things were achieved, right? And how they were then embedded into our history as we have known it to be fact. So questioning everything really is everything.
Everything, yeah.
You know?
I volunteered at a summer camp since like 2009, and it's like a free thought summer camp, mostly kind of atheist, and I've changed my opinions and values in life a lot since I started volunteering for them. And I created a hoodie for them that said question everything in the back. And the more years I spent at the camp questioning everything, the more I get asked not to return. Like the camp requires all the kids to be vaccinated. They won't really allow questions against scientific academia, not the scientific method. Again, people always think you have an issue against the scientific method. It's like, no, it has its time and place if people use it, but they're not using it.
No.
If we find out
it's
about
like,
the story,
like when we're saying that we don't agree with the science, it's that we
know the science.
Well, we don't even believe it is science what
Yeah.
we're teaching. It's just dogma. It's just
It's just stories.
pseudoscience.
Yeah.
It's nonsense.
Oh,
And I think that's what we
remember.
should probably that's how we should put it across, is that it's not that we're against science in any of these. I see you get these religious flat earthers that are against science, but they
It's
can probably
wherever- But what Joe's saying there, like wherever there's a story that we have heard it because someone wants us to hear that story, and we can look at that as kind of a malicious thing. But as an artist, as a writer, as a performer, I know how difficult it is to market yourself honestly, and most people don't market themselves honestly. Most people who really want to market themselves, they market themselves so ruthlessly and with such a fake
people just got to be themselves, haven't they?
Right.
But they cannot. But that's it. You've got someone like Michael Jackson. As he's himself. He may have been himself in a lot of places, and a lot of how he performed was really in flow. But he didn't get there because he was himself.
No.
He got there because of this ruthless male dominant hierarchy that just like destroys humans at the core and makes their souls have to do outrageous things in order to move through that.
It's a plastic persona.
Yeah, and you've got that in the likes of like Nicki Minaj and the likes nowadays, Beyonce.
Oh, yeah.
And it's terrifying to watch. And a lot of people go, they watch something like Katy Perry and it's a breakdown and it's a little clip and it's like this disinfo thing. It's like part of our live show where she like fakes falling over, and it's like, no, this doesn't like disprove MK Ultra. This is you seeing it on Facebook is just another level of MK Ultra. It's just another level of mind control where you have further sympathy towards someone who's continuing to be abused.
Yeah.
And they're being abused at such levels that they're not going to just step out of it. If you say to these people, you're being abused, they know they're being abused.
Yeah, because they got the Stockholm syndrome, haven't they?
But at some level, yes, some people do have Stockholm syndrome. But I think by the time you're in your 20s and that, you know how the game works. you know that you can't just bow out gracefully, and if you do, you're not going to
Well, yeah,
have the same
that's
power.
obviously that's part of it. If they're so caught up in it that they know that if they try to,
Something's going to happen.
it would just be kind of.
Or if they need to
Well,
call
they're
in a
probably
favour, they'll
conditioned
pull
to
them
think
back.
that in a way that
they're
if they
terrified.
tried to,
Yeah.
they'd either get killed, and even if they didn't, it would be pointless anyway, because they would just be kind of ridiculed and
Yeah,
kind of.
there's that kind of thing. Their reputation will be ruined. Like the one I heard of Dave Chappelle.
Their image would be in tatters, sort of thing. So
Yeah.
they would be like, "Screw that," I'm
When
not
Dave
risking it.
Chappelle was turning down his, it was like with Comedy Central, they had offered him like 10% of his contract. Like he had made like 50 million, and they're going to like, oh, we're going to give you 10 million, and he's like, what? No, you give me like that's no, and they're like, no, we're going to give you this amount, and you're going to do this, and you're going to change your show in this way, and you're going to change your show in this way, and by the way, you're going to stop presenting your black characters as racist. We want your black characters to be like, no, is that yeah, nice, whatever it was, they were trying to do it so he wasn't presenting black people in like a stereotypical way, so there wouldn't be any sympathy for it on the television. So it was about furthering that agenda there, and he's like, I'm not doing that. Like, I'm taking the piss out of like both black and white people.
Yeah.
What do you think my fans will think? And they said to him, Dave, your fans will think whatever we want them to think. By the time you have landed back in your home airport, your fans will think you're a drunken coke addict who beats his wife.
Right.
And that's as soon as someone starts making waves like that, they just start threatening things. And if someone thinks they're being really bold, it's like one of those horror films. They just got home one day and their wife's dead, and they're just like, what? No, but I thought I worked out the game. And it's like, no, you don't work out games as psychopaths have been playing this for generations. I'm sorry, you don't.
Yeah.
You have to work within your means, within the system that already exists, and do your best. If you die, okay, that's one vessel that dies. You've not done anything wrong there. They want you to do bad things on a spiritual level. They want you to give away yourself to all these like false ideas of someone who's going to save ourselves outside ourselves. They want us praising like James T. Kirk and someone who's traveling across a galaxy. They want us to think that,
right,
yeah, someone else.
Well, none of it matters anyway, because it's all just an experiment, isn't it? Isn't that right, Joe?
If it is, that's fine.
Well,
as long as we play it good.
It's possible, Jamie.
To me, that's kind of because like you were saying about the God and how why would they let all the suffering happen and all that? Maybe it's just something that needs to happen because good and evil has to happen.
So basically, we are cells in a petri dish, being observed, right, and allowing shit to happen, because any experiment, it's like I did say in that video, any experiment cannot be fully concluded if you get involved. You need to know and see the outcome. You set up the parameters. You allow events to happen. That's the only, in my layman terms, my only psychological approach to the insanity of this fucked up world, right? Yeah. Where you've got people, right, literally not eating for a week, right? How does that happen unless you have a creator that does not give a shit, right?
Yeah. There's a lot of unanswered questions on both sides. Atheism and the kind of I suppose the conventional creationism.
Remove the word God and replace it with the word nature, right? Stop looking at karma as reward and punishment, and look at it as cause and effect. Whenever we do things in alignment with the natural law, like with the Lord, with the natural law, things will work out to our benefit. Those who do horrible things do eventually get their comeuppance, but we don't see that, nor do we need to see that, because if we were seeing that and it was presented to us and we took glory in that, that would be our punishment, because we were taking glory in the punishment of other people. So when something bad happens to us, we can't heal ourselves. So whenever we are creating the world around us, we are causing that suffering. So we only see suffering when we are living in suffering. We only see the notion of a heaven when we are living in a heavenly world. When we are in hell, we do not want to see heavenly things. When we are in heaven, we do not want to see hellish things.
But to me, heaven and hell are, obviously Christians won't agree with this, but to me, heaven and hell is just a state of mind.
I agree.
And a lot of Christians, like a bit of a straw man there saying Christians don't agree, but
Well, I'm just saying, as in Christians, that most of them are to believe in some, literal place
Yeah,
or
a
some
lot
kind
of
of
Christians
spiritual
believe in a
place or
literal
whatever.
place rather than but I think I think there is a spiritual place that is existing presently, as in I am currently presently existing.
But
On a
but
physical
I mean, a
realm,
lot of them
an
think of it
energetic
as
realm, and a
somewhere
spiritual
like that
realm.
we go after death and we've got to go through this life and then we get judged and all that. That just doesn't resonate with me at all.
Yeah.
It's just,
It
to
does
me, it's
resonate.
just another
I didn't resonate
control
with me in the
mechanism.
past, right? But since I consumed DMT, it has resonated with me quite strongly. I think that the imagery that is shown in ancient Egypt of the weighing of the heart against the feather of Maat, or like the notion of going through like the 42 judges, whatever, though a lot of the things in these death ceremonies do strike in fear, some of them aren't there primarily just to strike up fear. Like there are organized religion I used to have such an issue with. Like it's there and it's manipulating the world and it's taking people's money and they're tax exempt and they're manipulating, they're raping children, they're abusing just people. And that doesn't happen just in religion. And I started looking at what the issue was there. And it's dogmatic belief in male hierarchy structures, usually. Not just male hierarchy structures, and hierarchy structures. They are very, very prone to that abuse when it's not out in the open. And I looked at why things aren't out in the open. It's like because people feel disconnected from nature, because we fell out of balance with nature. So I look at why we fell out of balance with nature. There's a lot of reasons we fell out of balance with nature. And it's why we have created technology. Technology is trying to make sense of why we fell out of nature, I feel. That's my hypothesis. But it's back to the notion of the veganism being presented as a bad thing, right? It's what is referred to as Luciferian intellect, right? Whenever you go so far away from the light that you create a darkness that seems more believable than the light, right?
Mm-hmm.
So rather than you embracing the truth, the light, by seeing the sun and saying, that is a celestial body that is close to me and I can feel its heat. And when it leaves the sky, I know that it is not traveling around to 180 degrees beneath me. That's ridiculous. I feel that to be true. You can look at the world. You can look at a tree that has fruit and you see grapes on a tree. Like there's a grape there, right? You see a grape on a tree and you're like, that looks tasty. Whenever you look at a dead cow, carcass of a dead cow, you don't think it looks tasty. We don't look at eggs and think tasty.
People are conditioned to, kind of.
Are they?
Some people actually think, a steak is actually, kind of looks good, and.
No, but there's a difference between steak.
Some people,
prepared,
right? Kind of.
I've eaten steak. I've eaten chicken. I've eaten lamb. I've eaten bacon. I've eaten lots of different animals. I have not eaten them for a long time, but when I did, I ate them and I enjoyed the flavor of them, mainly because of how they were prepared, the herbs and spices with them, the meal they were cooked in. I never looked at a pig and wanted to maul it. That's what carnivores feel. They feel that they feel hunger towards eating a living being. I've never felt that. I've eaten living beings. Yeah, I have. But it's a dead being. I've killed it in order to eat it. Whenever I'm eating a grape, I don't feel anything bad towards the grape. I feel like it's a good symbiosis. It's in natural law. It's in symbiosis with natural law, and we can follow it of natural law symbiotically in a lot of ways. Like I certainly know it myself. We're sitting on a computer right now. This is out of equilibrium with nature, but we have been forced to do this by our culture because we can't talk about these subjects in public because public's part of the matrix. But we're still plugged into the matrix in a lot of ways, like looking at fruit and saying, "Oh, too much fruit is bad for you." It's like, no, it's not. I've never met someone who's eaten too much fruit. Never.
I'm really sorry. Can I just divert the conversation a little bit?
Please do, yeah.
Because I've been out the loop. I'm sorry, Edward. I know you don't know who I am, and I used to have a YouTube channel, and I just wanted to ask Jamie. So what's with Jamie? What's with the copyright strike or whatever?
I think it was one of the trolls that gave me a strike, and yeah.
Okay.
So when you're given a strike, you can't live stream on that channel for 90 days.
Oh.
But I'd already already created the channel because I'd actually, someone else gave me a strike, but he actually took it back because I took the video down or something.
Okay.
That was nice.
But
right, so your original channel where you got all the subscribers, you can't do any live shit for what, 3 months?
Well, till November the 6th, I think it is.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah, November the 6th. So yeah, it does, feel like, obviously, when you've, kind of lost the ability to go, live stream on there, it's kind of.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'll still, put videos on that channel. But I mean, I've got, some people over here, obviously. It's just kind of stunted somewhat the ability to grow that other channel at the moment, because obviously, I could have been well on the way to 1,000 by now. Not that the numbers matter, of course, because
I know, but
it would,
it's
helping the truth getting out there, wouldn't it? That's
yeah. Okay, fair enough.
But yeah, I have to just come over here for now. It's just
right.
What my higher self kind of guiding me to do.
Nice one. I also hear that you've got is it you that you're arranging a meetup?
Yeah, I'm just kind of doing a local meetup. It's just because I've seen obviously all the meetups going on. I've been to 2 meetups.
Oh, have you?
Yeah.
Where was that?
There was one at Blackpool and one in Leamington Spa.
Was any of that video?
Well, yeah, the Leamington Spa one. Yeah, I mean, I think Eternal Padawan videoed it and. Yeah.
Okay, right. I'll have to because I took my channel down, I have to resubscribe to people. So I'm gonna have to check out his channel.
Yeah. You'll have to just like you said, you'll have to. Looks like Flatty McFlatface has been taking another break as well, and
right.
And Yorkshire Lass Tracy as well. Not been around for a while, so.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, people just got to do what they got to do, innit?
Well, yeah, absolutely, mate. Yeah.
Life gets in the way, I suppose, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. It does. And to be honest, the older you get, the more distractions you get as well.
Well, that's it, yeah. But yeah, freaking go back to the topic then. Is there anything else?
Which topic?
Just because you was going on about the veganism and all that stuff.
More from the point, I think that veganism is like a political movement, and that should be separated from a species-specific eating regime. That humans are frugivores, and though we can eat meat and dairy, eggs, we can also eat grass, stones. A man ate a bicycle once. We can eat light bulbs. These things don't necessarily benefit us, but what benefits us most is fruit. It goes through our bodies quicker than anything. It is the perfect balance of amino acids, of fats, of proteins. It is in wide abundance across the planet. It grows really nicely. We are naturally attracted to it. It tastes wonderful, and some vegetables can.
Yeah, I'm just actually thinking in my mind right now. I'd much rather just go over to a nice kind of juicy fruit over a piece of steak, for instance.
Yeah.
Even though sometimes I'll eat meat and stuff, it's just kind of
those are emotions
given to you, and if you're in a situation where you're eating it, but it's like I'll soon be kind of
This is one of the things that's good to break down for being a direct realist. We look at our sensations and how we experience something. If we walk into a theatre and we are watching the screen with our eyes and we're listening to the Dolby surround sound, and we are feeling like the air and like the stillness, we are smelling the popcorn, we're tasting it on our tongue, we are grinding it, we're tasting the saltiness, right? All of these things are built together in order to give us the experience of seeing a film in the theatre. This is before we've even experienced a plot or something. This is just auxiliary things. It's exactly the same thing when we are eating a meal. We go, oh, I miss pizza, and go, I don't miss pizza. What I miss is sitting down with a group of people having conversations with a big meal that was like a Hans meal that I could rip apart, and something that was tasted really nice.
So it was more. It's not the meal itself. It's more of the kind of social aspect that people
not just the social
want to kind of let go of.
The connotations of it, though. Social eating is definitely a downfall to our society, because as fasting myself, I fasted for
Well, eating's more
Days
just meant to be a
accumulatively.
kind of part of life that, you know, it's kind of that you just do it and you just move
I
on
used to
sort of
think
thing.
that.
You know, you're supposed to just pick your fruits or whatever and you just
Yeah.
eat it, move on.
Yeah.
That's what.
Yeah.
It's not supposed to be this kind of gather and all around a
Yeah.
big chicken or a turkey or whatever. That's all.
But that's part of it though. So
kind of,
like Terence McKenna gave me ideas towards that. If you look at it, the notion of like whenever we're doing well, we're walking through the forest, the jungle, we see berries, we see fruits, we eat them as we travel. We sit down, we have naps in the afternoon, the children play, and then we have an evening like sit around telling stories before everyone goes off to bed when the sunset goes, you know?
Yeah.
And do the same thing the next day. When it gets bad, when it starts getting real cold, we start getting exhausted, there starts to not being fruit on the trees and we feel emotionally drained. It's been a difficult day. We want to eat something. So the feminine energy, being the mother usually, will go out and usually with the women, if there are women in the tribe, get herbs, things together, drugs that are plant medicines available in the environment, mix those together and give it to everyone. This will be in some tribes, it will be like things like ayahuasca, like very, very small amount. A lot would be like psilocybin cults with the magic mushroom, and then just things like cacao, chocolate. The way like children would have like if there's a thunderstorm in America and they're given hot cocoa, it's exactly the same thing. We don't look at it as the same thing because we bought it in Walmart and like we've got the internet 10 minutes later when the electricity comes back on. But it's just these cultural plant medicines that we're using in amongst it, and it's the emotions we have connected to that. So something like cacao has something called anandamide in it, and that is connected to a feel-good chemical that we get from breast milk and get from connection to our mother. So anytime we're having chocolate, we feel that same love connection that we would to our mother. So we end up can have a complex relationship with chocolate because we're drugged.
Yeah.
We don't see it as that. We just see it as, oh, I really like chocolate.
Everything is association based.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So our emotions are intertwined with
to
our
experience.
physical reality.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we grow and we become who we are based on our life and how our life has progressed throughout the years into adulthood.
Yeah.
That's how habits come about, isn't it? Whether it's smoking, whether it's alcohol, whether it's food, whether it's whatever it is, everybody has an addiction. You know, there are people in the world. There are people in the world that are addicted to money. There are people in the world that are addicted to Coca-Cola. You know, it goes on and on and on, doesn't it? We associate our addiction based on our mental upbringing. You know, so everything is psychological. Everything is psychological, and that is why, funnily enough, when we come to the topic of flat Earth, that's why a lot of people cannot accept it because of social conditioning.
You have a lot to lose.
Right.
Yeah.
They've invested too much.
Yeah.
Because you get people who, you know, they start going down rabbit holes of, you know, multiverse and wormholes and all this stuff.
And like theories in like science fiction is fine. You can put forward these ideas that this may be there, and that's cool. But it just blurs so quickly, and they're doing that intentionally. This whole thing with like the artificial reality thing, it's like you can't disprove it. It's never going to be disproven.
Yeah, you have to keep it separate from observable reality.
Yeah.
Do you know what?
And it's like,
I will say this, right? You know, I've heard a lot of flat earthers that have turned around. I've heard a lot of flat earthers that have turned around and they've said, oh, since coming into this reality, I can no longer watch Star Trek or Star Wars or...
It's ridiculous.
To me, that's bonkers.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, if your brain is fully intact in regards to the reality of your world, then you can watch these things knowing that they are fiction.
Yeah.
You know? They're escapism.
There's some points that I watch like Star Wars.
Yeah, it proves that you're still kind of in the Matrix somewhat.
And I would try and like work out the physics of it, and I can't make sense of it based on the fact that they aren't true physics. Like things like that will baffle me. But I can buy into the story. It's just, it was the same story. I wasn't looking at it thinking Tatooine was real before, going like, what do you mean Mos Eisley not real? Can I watch this?
Right.
Yeah, because it wasn't meant to be real to begin with, so what he's losing by realising it's flat, it just kind of, you know, that it's like when people see this, you know, Star Wars UFOs and stuff, and they see the globe in the background, and then they don't think to themselves, well, hang on, maybe the pictures of the globe that we get are just CGI like that. You know, if they can do it, then it's faith.
Yeah.
If they can, if they can fake it, then it's just faith.
Hollywood does a far better job of representing a spinning ball than NASA.
It really,
Right?
really does. It really
Yeah, and you know, like on every
You know?
movie that you see them, you know, zooming in on the ball Earth,
like CIA shit and that.
and it's like going through clouds and stuff, and it's like, and it gets down to the location where they start. It's a very clever way of programming people.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it's like there's got to be an agenda to it. It's like why are they doing that all the time? Like
You see all the satellites going above as well. You're like, oh wow, it's so complex. It's like, yeah, it would be really complex to keep 18,000 satellites in orbit around an Earth and not crash into anything ever.
Right.
Fuck, that's incredible.
Right.
As you said, like they create these things, and like wherever they're creating it for a big diversion.
Right. I have no problem.
No problem with what? Sorry, you cut out there saying.
I was saying that I have no problem with fiction as long as people know it's fiction.
Yeah.
Yeah? And that's the problem with this whole scenario, is that we have been told to believe in a model that is entirely fiction as reality.
Yeah. I would even be annoyed at them
the joke
if they
of
did
it
it
all.
by mistake. Like if they presented it and they were like, this is our ideas of what it could be, and it is a fiction, and then we believe it as fact, that's disingenuous, sure, right? But they knowingly know they're creating a fiction that is supposed to divert us away from things. They know that they're being malicious with it.
Right.
And that's what you see, like I think it was Chris Cassidy, I think it was, of NASA. He's Chris something. During one of the live feeds, they ask him like what it's like to be at school, and he mentions like, and all that happens in a little high school in Maine, USA, across the United States, where we're filming this from at the moment, and he's supposed to be in the ISS.
Right.
And you see that his face just drop off. That's not a face of a man who's just been like, oh, I made a mistake. Like we're trying to do this because it's no. That's a man who's dropped the ball off a big hoax, and they're trying to hold up this lie in order to hold us down because they think they're better than us.
Right.
Did you see that when someone was on the ISS supposedly, and somebody literally just looking at a cue card to pre-prepared answers to questions? It's all just staged, really.
Yeah.
So nothing's kind of off the cuff, and kind of.
It's all orchestrated. Everything is all orchestrated. And I'm sure you guys watched it. What about the one where Trump, when he got in power, right, became president, and then a month later, he does a live feed with ISS astronauts.
Oh, yeah, I remember that, embarrassing.
That was just horrible.
Yeah.
Horrible. Because he even said, look, in my first term, I'm going to send people to Mars.
But then in the same breath, it was going on about what was it about the Nebraska plains or something.
Yeah, it's just
like it was like it was like how you get the magicians and you get like the when they're kind of telling each other the secrets, but they're doing it in like a way that most people won't catch onto it. Like, you have to be in the know, sort of thing.
Yeah,
it's like he's doing that, and it's like we know what he's on about, but they don't.
You're right.
It's like he's communicating with us and not them, kind of thing.
That was one that really hit me. Like when I first started really researching into the responses of astronauts, when I realized that I'm like, oh, I don't need to even look into anything that NASA have ever released. I can just listen to the accounts of people, and they'll give away. Like I've read enough into psychology of like body language and whatnot, to know how to pick apart someone's story. I'm like, all these people seem to be lying about something. What are they lying about? And whenever you can see that, I don't even know what it is about the way his face goes, but it's like it's the first time I'd seen like Carl Sagan not on like Cosmos or whatever, or just like one-on-one with him, and he's on a panel and someone else is speaking, and it's not an astronaut, it's someone else, and he's like a fiction writer or something, and he says something that gives a nod to something.
Right.
If you're in the know, right?
Yeah.
And it's the first time I've seen like Carl Sagan's face do it, but I didn't like the face it made. It was just like, it's just like so annoying. It's the way I feel like listening to Neil deGrasse Tyson the whole of the time. And it's the first time I've ever felt it with Carl Sagan. I was just like, oh, you're so smug. You're pulling the wool over everyone's eyes and you think you're so clever with it. You're not. You're so mean. Don't be that way.
Right. Edward, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, please.
When did you come into Flat Earth?
About 2.5 years ago.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
And what was your actual emotions when you realised,
Of course.
this reality?
Of course. So many other things like clicked into place. Like I'd been fascinated by aliens from such a young age.
Me
Fascinated
too.
by supernatural. Trying to make sense of them. And then it got into like even from a cultural viewpoint, why they exist across cultures. The same kind of thing that Terence McKenna looked into. Like regardless if these people are seeing aliens or not, like all these people who are going off like drunk in a field somewhere, they're seeing something and the reports are consistent. So what are they seeing? And what I'm thinking they're seeing is just a DMT experience now, dimethyltryptamine, near-death experience or a traumatic experience, and they're releasing this chemical that bright colours and you see into other dimensions and other realms of
or government technology.
And government technology definitely exists with it as well. They can control people's minds with these things.
That's how government gets away with producing what they do.
Yeah.
They blame it on UFOs. They go, that's a UFO.
Yeah. And like, I think like the vast majority of things we're seeing, it's definitely not something obviously from outer space because it doesn't exist.
Right.
But I knew there was something like the people who are going on these like book tours. I remember seeing a guy who did like a tour and he was like in the CIA and it was like in some place in like Colorado, some like underground bunker, and he went like one layer level down that he's supposed to not go down to, and he sees an alien and he pulls his gun on the alien and he shoots the alien and the alien makes an energy ball and shoots him. And at the time I was just like, whoa, was that if that's true? I'm like, well, either that's a really, really invested lie for some reason, or it's true. And the guy did these book tours and he seemed really sincere about it, and then he gets hung, he gets killed, and he has 3 knots around his neck and he's like, oh, it's a suicide, and it's like, oh, it's totally Freemason, and it's like, no, but is that just another one that's just like a total joke, just like the Challenger explosion, and you can just swap these things out? Because once I got into the notion that they're actual maniacs, they're actual psychopaths, like got into the mindset of if these families have been doing this for generations and how they program their young is to abuse them at a young age in order to make them disconnect from emotions even further, in order to bring through latent like psychological abilities, like that is satanic stuff. And that's what it is. Like Satanism is like worshipping the self. And when you're like the queen, like Queen Elizabeth, and you think you own land across the world, you own these things called countries, you have servants in the thousands, and people go, oh, she's wonderful, and you're like, do you think she's a bit of an egomaniac? And they go, how dare you say that? Why would you think that? And you're like, are you kidding me? Like, what would make you more egomaniacal than having countries that bow to you and sing I don't like when they sing God Save the Queen in E minor, make it an F sharp now. And you're like, this is like off with their head, Alice in Wonderland stuff.
Absolutely, yeah.
Like, and like once you get into that mindset of like, oh, they don't care, they'll kill people, they'll pretend to kill people, they'll kill them in the thousands, they'll kill their own family if they need to, but they don't want to. They want to keep away from killing their own family. So
what was your first video that brought you into the Flat Earth?
I don't even know the first video with Flat Earth. No. It was like a variety of different things. There was a project I'd worked on, like I'll show you a second, you'll be able to see it. I can turn my video off. see that image there?
Right.
That image was for an album cover I made in like maybe 2011 or something like that. And the image of it, I took the middle image that was on like the tallest tower in Chicago, the Sears Tower, the Willis Tower,
Okay.
looking down at the ground, and I wanted the other one to be like above in the earth.
Okay.
So the other one I took in the plane, and I was flying like to America, and I wanted it to look like I was really high up, so I made this kind of like curve on it.
Cool.
And I'm like, it doesn't look how I want it to look. I'll go and check NASA. I know that NASA have public domain images that you can use for your projects.
Right.
And like I could just go and do that, and that will save me any hassle.
So are you a designer?
Yeah, I'm an artist, and I've done some design work.
Oh wow. Okay, so I am as well. So that's fascinating.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's where I started it from, and like I studied art at both college and university. I studied photography for a few years at college, and then I went on to university to study digital filmmaking and time-based art, which is like incorporating loads of art, performance and visual art, installation, just anything that is durational in form. So fucking anything really.
Cool.
And I started like breaking down these images in the NASA website. Like I was looking around like, oh, that one's CGI. Like, oh, I'll try and find one of the real ones. Oh, that one's CGI as well. And I'm like 20 minutes into this and I'm getting tired. Like, I'm just like, I can't find any of these real photographs. All I can find is these like CGI images. And I'm like, oh, I'm sure I've seen the ones that are like legit back in the day though. Like the ones that are just taking my normal camera. If they've got these digital cameras that are like 15 megapixel, you're talking about like still cameras like back in the 60s. They were really nice photographs.
Yeah.
And you're talking about I'm wondering like what shutter speed would you need for an image that is for a planet that's spinning at 900 miles per hour? Just like this, and trying to convey that to someone.
Settings would be insane, wouldn't they?
Yeah. And you try and explain that to someone from like you end up sounding like this like photography whack. You're like, you don't understand how reality works. And it's like, no, I understand how another level of reality works that only instruments can pick up on that I can't understand at all.
Right.
Like looking at time lapse, I was like, all right, well that means like stars. Why are stars always in the same position? I started considering like Orion's belt, like how these stars should be like millions of light years apart and they're plane.
Right.
In the same way, if you're traveling a distance and you move, you would be completely at a distance with that star within a day or two. But not Orion's constellation is the same Orion that I seen when I was 5.
That's right.
The constellation is almost identical.
Thousands of years.
Yeah. And it's the same thing they were doing, like, as you said before, 500 years ago. Full consensus across every landmass. They were chiseling it into stone. And then what is the response of people nowadays? Oh, this has never have, from as far as I can tell, been primitive. We've certainly had things we've not been doing. But we've always been clever things, and we've always had the ability for intense amounts of like collective consciousness that allow us to create wonderful structures. It's just part of our thing as a being. The way that bees make like hives and whatnot, we'll build things that are miraculous, but we've been distracted to build things like cities that are not so good because we're being pushed away from our full potential.
Right.
But yeah, like certainly not one video that popped me into flat earth, but just started piecing together so many different things. I'm like, how can they orchestrate all this stuff? I'm like, oh, and I remembered back, like I just mentioned it on Dell's channel there, like watching a Challenger documentary with my girlfriend, and it was this like argument during the documentary. They're like, one of the astronaut, like one of the people who worked on the shuttle, whatever, knew about this coil that if he'd have said something to them, it would have saved their lives.
Right.
And he did say something, and then he was shot down, and it kind of like hurt his confidence. So he went away and he studied more. And my girlfriend was arguing like, if he'd have just like pushed further, those people would still be alive. And I'm like, no, I like that, and start arguing back and forth, and we like fell out that night. I remember it was like such a silly argument, and we fall out with this. It's fucking fairy tales, and we were like having a fight about it. It's like this.
The thing is with the shuttle things, for example, right? Do you remember the one where there was one where they showed you the inside of the shuttle as it was going up into space, allegedly, right? And then you see the guy with a helmet on, but he's got a fucking t-shirt on. What's that about? What is that about? It's almost like they're taking the piss out of us.
Yeah.
It's almost like they're saying, we know we're bullshitting, and you are going to accept this, and you're going to take it. You
one
know?
of my favorite ones is the same kind of thing. Like, did you see the one that's like the stop frame animation?
Yeah.
Right. And there's a bit where it's like the spaceship, and the guy's here, like, and he's out of shadow, and he's like got the thing up here.
Yeah.
And he goes, whoa.
Yeah.
And obviously you can't see it because it's dark. You could just change the shadow contrast, and you see this guy just like totally duck his head away.
Yeah.
Your guy's walking outside in space and that. And you're like,
that's right. It's
it's
bonkers.
nonsense.
It's bonkers. You know, but look, at the end of the day, this is social conditioning.
Yeah.
It's cognitive dissonance, you know, for those who won't accept it.
Yeah.
You know, when you've been told all your life that you are living on a spinning ball, traversing through space, right? Going around the sun at 67,000 miles per hour, which in turn is dragging all of these planets at nearly 500,000 miles per hour, you need to stop and go, hang on a minute. Just a minute. Why am I not sensing
I think they're
this?
even claiming that the whole, the whole universe is moving at like 600 million miles an hour. I think is what they're. I don't know if that's the case.
How did they measure that? Which way is it driving?
I don't know if that's what they're claiming, but it's just there's like.
What is the opposing force of the universe? Like if there's a car, they're measuring that speed based on
it was just one of the people that was saying that maybe the universe is moving as well, and it's like.
I like one of the excuses. Like it was like, oh, so there's a flat disc that we live on. Are we saying this flat disc travels up at like 9,000 miles per hour in order to make that gravitational pull? It's
because the
I hate that shit.
because it's like they say, oh well, they don't believe it in gravity. They believe it's actually an upward acceleration. And it's like we get attached to this straw man of this this disc.
They don't believe their own eyes.
Accelerating upward, and they're like, oh well, how come a feather and a hammer falls at the same rate? I mean, well,
in a vacuum with fake footage.
So does that give you measurable proof of any kind of vast body of water being able to cling to a ball?
It doesn't even explain it. Gravity still doesn't explain it. Like, see when you see these films and it's like gravity into a point, right, and all the paper clips are flying towards it. Like that as a physics makes sense. That's not even what we experience on Earth. It's not all the light things fall to Earth and all the heavy things have a struggle. None of the heavy things have a struggle.
Yeah, because it seems to work the opposite to magnetic force.
The density.
And I'm
listen. I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again. The only time I've ever witnessed water conforming to the outside of any balls is when I'm sat in a bath. Right? It doesn't happen any other time, right? Anywhere, ever.
Yeah, that just a bit of surface tension.
Yeah, but the Earth is a pear-shaped balloon, and there's a giant tap. And if the giant universal T-shirt of time rubs against the Earth, it creates a bubble that Carl Sagan made. Yeah, got it, guys. Science, bro.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah. So this gravity claim that actually planes automatically adjust due to gravity. Well, why is the plane up there if there's gravity? Why isn't it being pulled back down to Earth? If it should be being pulled to the center of the Earth, right?
Right.
Should be being pulled around the Earth.
Right.
So is there something in this that we're missing, that actually gravity is not pulling it toward the Earth, because then that kind of disproves the whole theory?
Well, gravity is a very selective force, isn't it? It's a very selective force, because
it does what it wants.
Helium balloons can rise, right? And they can float to wherever level, right? And it won't drag them back down.
Well, that's because kinetic energy, right?
Eh?
That's because kinetic energy, right?
Kinetic?
I don't know, I'm sure one of the, like Brenda, I think she said something about, they're going about the buoyant forces and stuff, and that's why,
It's just...
that's why smoke rises and all that.
Give me a break. Give me a literal break. In
It's like
terms of Russian vids, give me a literal break, you know? Please, you know? You can't tell me that a helium balloon can rise up to the heavens, right? But yet the same force that allows this helium balloon to rise is forcing trillions upon trillions of tons of water to stick to the outside of a ball.
It's because of 9.81 meters per second squared acceleration.
Oh.
And
that's
all they've got really. It's like
the second I hear measurements, the second I hear someone give me a number, I'm like, you don't understand what you're talking about.
because it's like
they've never measured it.
Even if they had it, it's like you can't prove that's the case like every single time, can you?
You could literally stand with a light gun up in the air and measure towards a star how fast you're spinning. You're not. You could follow the star around and it's just like, oh, that star happens to be just circling Polaris. And you go, oh, that's just tonight, the way it's moving. And you go, but it could never move like that. We're not moving, guys. We're not moving. We're not moving.
Bonkers.
But what do we, right? So we understand this. What do we do? Stephen, next week they turn it, and every single one of these guys who believes in the heliocentric model is like, I've always known it was flat. I was like, it's always been flat. It's the Mandela effect. They've made it flat.
That might be the next scapegoat.
And we were just like, what the fuck, guys? What do we do then? Like, what is our next? What's next on the agenda? Like, because they can certainly be bought over with the next fiction. It'll be they've changed the virtual reality. The artificial simulation's been altered. Elon Musk has changed the source code of civilization. It's now flat.
Well, I heard a theory that the New World Order is flat Earth. So the paradigm shift apparently is going to be flat Earth.
Who said that?
I believe it was Adam's Truth Journey.
Yeah, I've heard people saying that this is like let out on purpose by the so-called elite to kind of steer the narrative and kind of push some new religion.
I definitely think there'll be some part of it, and I think that we should stay vigilant to that, because I think there will be truths that are in the flat Earth discussions. I'm not sure if you've seen like the blood over intent and things like that. They're just like those kind of things. I think that they're tied in with things that seem believable enough, that they'll be able to make us do something that we're not supposed to do, that just like goes against our gut and goes against truth. Like what you're saying.
I've never bought into the whole blood over intent thing. It's people can do it if they want to do it, and if they get like benefits from it. But how do they know it's not some prophecy sort of thing, placebo effect? If they believe in it that much, then they might convince themselves that they've had some benefits from it.
But what you're saying about the thing like 500 years ago, the notion that, let's say hypothetically, they created the dome, right?
Right.
That we do live in a flat, motionless plane, but then they create a dome that's a certain size. And then they start creating this fiction that we live on a ball. So it creates the limits within it.
Right.
The old Truman Show thing, we don't go beyond that.
Yeah.
But it is this infinite plane that just keeps going. And all it is a case of like, they've cut down the trees. Like when they cut down the big gigantic trees that are on Earth, they took all the silica that was in that and just built the dome.
Yeah.
And now we just live as
more importantly,
a little battery in there.
More importantly, by cutting down these trees that were miles and miles high, you are cutting the oxygen.
Yeah.
And oxygen has been proven to heal the human body, to add intellect to the human psyche, right? So I actually believe there is some mileage in the theory that oxygen has been limited for a reason.
Yeah, because people go on about silicon-based life forms and how they were actually kind of not deprived of oxygen like we are now. It was like 21%, which is probably not enough to really kind of sustain long life, really. Like they did it back in the time where people lived 600, 700, 800 years. Some of them
like beings that are not affected by minimized oxygen.
You can believe that, or if you want to, you don't have to believe that. It's just, what's obviously written down in scripture and stuff, which I've no investment in. It just it is interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like, well, if they did live longer, then there has to be a reason why they lived longer.
Yeah, listen, we just need to keep vigilant, all right? Keep a black and white, well, not black and white, but we need to just look at proofs for what they are, all right? And I've always said to you, Jamie, and you know this, right? I will not invest my time and energy in something that cannot be proven, right?
Yeah.
So let's look at facts, let's look at proof, and let's use that as our basis for going forwards.
Yeah, it's like we're at the position where it's like, okay, we know it's not a spinning ball that's 25,000 miles in circumference, but
yeah,
I mean, we don't know it's flat for sure, of course. I mean, we don't know that because we can't measure the whole thing, but we do know it.
We can be fairly sure because we know how water works.
We know that most of the world is level, at least.
But you can't see it all, so I mean, it could curve it on like a small scale.
But that does not need to be brought into the equation because you've never experienced anything.
Yeah, it's kind of I suppose you need to kind of just...
And that's fine if you want to create that as a
I suppose you kind of need to apply Occam's razor, don't you?
Yeah, and that's it. Occam's razor at every turn. Like
any scenario, I said this at the beginning of our chat, any scenario where water does not remain level, right? Any scenario where water curves upwards, curves downwards. I'm sorry, but I will not accept, right? Because that is not my physical reality, all right? So any model that represents or puts forward water behaving contradictorily to what I observe and know and see, I will have to reject.
Yeah, so then we need to obviously, kind of establish that first, and then we kind of move on and think, well, what's then to discover once we've found that? Because obviously if they've lied to us about that, there has to be a huge reason for them lying about it to keep it.
You find out the lie first, and then you find out the motive.
We know the motive. The motive is they don't want us to know that they have discovered more land, and that this land has got far more resources that we've been told about.
But some are saying, more land's disinfo or whatever.
Well, no,
what is it that they're hiding then? What are they actually hiding? If there's no more land, then,
There's not a limit of resources, let's put it that way. Scarcity is an illusion. There's never
they have us believe that oil and all these resources are actually scarce, so that they can. But the whole kind of.
Well, think about it. How does guys, think about it. How does the monetary system work? It works. It's based on scarcity. Thank you, Edward. Right? It's based on scarcity. So if you're told, right, there's a limited amount of gold, there's a limited amount of silver, there's a limited amount of oil, right? You can then hike the prices, right?
Everything.
For gold, oil, and silver, because you're working on the pretense that these things are limited, right? That's what makes them valuable. If they were in abundance, you would be buying them for the pennies.
Yeah.
Right? Think about it psychologically, right? So you live on a ball, you've got nowhere else to go, you've got nowhere else to explore, right? And then you got Richard E. Byrd, who admits in the 50s that there is land bigger than America past the South Pole.
Then some might say, that's because he came up from the South Pole, back up the other side of the globe.
That would be real quick. He travelled the entire size of the planet.
But it still doesn't answer
they said it was the size of America that past the South Pole, so.
But it still doesn't answer the fact that think about how big America is. And he admits that he saw land as big as America, right?
He saw giant.
Beyond the South Pole.
Let's look at that as well. He saw giant fruit, he saw giant civilizations, he saw giant people.
Right.
Like, this land is one thing, but there's a lot of stuff that they're keeping from us, if that's true. If it's not true, they're still keeping something from us. If they've created Admiral Byrd's story, if he is also fake, they're creating that in order to hide probably other land somewhere. It's still to keep...
Well, some are saying it's a diversion from the north, because it's like there seems to be this attention on the south when the
Well-
north's probably a lot more accessible than the south because it's just easier to get to for most people, isn't
I
it?
think
And even
both are important to go to. South feels less accessible to me. The South Outer Rim seems like
it seems more kind of like.
but the
Well,
North
it seems
Pole
like when you talk about frequencies and stuff, it seems like we're more drawn toward the north, kind of.
Yeah, yep.
Because
And I was just going to
it's
say
like,
there was like
they almost
Santa and
believe
North
that on
Pole.
the
I think
ball
that's
it's like
tied in
the
there for a reason.
equator is like the hottest place, and that's certainly not true. It's above the equator somewhere.
How far above the equator do you know?
I don't know, but I know it's definitely warmer up in the north. So
Because it's so tricky. Like one of the things that really threw me on, like as I said, there wasn't like one point that hit me to the flat Earth. But do you know is it the Dvorakine keyboard? Is that what it is? It's just there's more than just the QWERTY keyboard, which I'm sure you're aware of.
Oh yeah.
All these different styles for like different typing. And then I seen a map of the world that was kind of like similar way. It was like, here's all the different ways that you can represent the world. And I'm like, yeah, but what's the most accurate representation? And I'm looking at all of them and like the size of Scotland's changing in them. And I'm like, yeah, but that's like the water levels, things like that. And I'm like,
No one actually knows the true size of countries and continents.
yeah, but that's a line happened to hit into my head once when I was
you
sitting
think
on a
with all
shoreline.
that GPS information that
No, but even
it'd be
like,
pretty
listen to
accurate by
this,
now.
Jamie. See if you're sitting there and you take a measuring device, right? Do you measure the coastline of that country to be that size? Does it need to be that much of a curve? Does it need to be that much of a curve? Does it need to be that much of a curve? How do you measure the coastline of a country? If you go into it as further fractals, as further fractals, as further fractals, it's different depending on how you measure that. It's different depending on the coastline, depending on the time of year. It's different in the water levels. So it constantly changes.
So it's like it's subject to a lot of variables.
Yeah, and you can never measure that consistently, and you can't even pass that on to the next generation of like, this is definitely going to be there. This is like how it will look. You just have to go the kind of the gist of it.
Yeah.
And that's the way you create this. Like, it's a logical nightmare, but it is how pragmatic logistics work. It's how you can break it down into black and white when it's not black and white.
Listen, guys.
Sorry.
Can I just say, Jamie, I'm really sorry, mate. I'm going to have to shoot off now. Lovely to meet you, Edward.
Joe, yeah, good to meet you, Joe.
Good to meet you, my friend.
Much love.
Jamie, hopefully I'll be back in a couple of weeks, mate. We'll have another chat, all right?
Yeah. It's been good.
Cheers. Take care.
Good to talk to you again. But yeah.
And you, mate. And you.
Yeah.
Keep doing what you do.
Yeah. Take care.
Cheers, Edward.
Take care.
Yeah. What was I going to talk about? So it's just really a best guess, really, based on approximations because of the variables and things. So it's like these bowlers, they keep referencing these geodetic surveyors and all that, and it's like say proves anything, and apparently it's just a guess, it's just a best guess or something.
Yeah, but
it's like
you can't measure it. It's always going to be down to a subjective opinion of what a length of something is. It's completely arbitrary. People don't get that. It's like measuring a tree. How do you measure a tree? Do you measure it from the ground up? Do you measure it from the ground to the top of the tree branches, to the top of the leaves? Do you measure it just upwards? Do you measure it outwards? Like, it doesn't. It goes beyond that. It is a living organism. Everything in nature is living. It is flowing. This is the feminine. The masculine, patriarchal sense wants to make a pattern.
Nature is far too complex to be measured. It's each snowflake is different. For instance.
But with that, each snowflake has a design, and the design of that snowflake is geometrically perfectly balanced in nature, and it works symbiotically in nature. So if we take a snowflake, we can take that exact same design, replicate it up in scale. We can make a gigantic snowflake, and as long as we keep it to the same ratio, it will be structurally solid. It will be structurally as powerful as the snowflake. This is the way it works across nature. The Fibonacci sequence that we see, the golden ratio that is found.
Also, some believe that's all just a myth, because of how nature is just kind of and you can't. And they say, well, because Fibonacci is a maths thing, and it's like you can't use
It's an
maths to
observation.
describe nature.
That's the only thing that mathematics does. Mathematics can only describe nature. All mathematics is a description of nature, because all design is a description of nature, because the only thing we have ever experienced is nature. Now, this is from a direct realist viewpoint, from the Gnostic viewpoint of the present moment, that we have only ever experienced the present moment. We are currently experiencing natural law and the cause and effect of that. We are experiencing the consequence of all our actions in this present moment, all the good and the bad things we've done in our life. And there's a reason that we are not in places in our life because of the actions we've carried out. And this is natural law. It's cause and effect. And when we rip this apart, it doesn't necessarily benefit us. We can say that, law is being unfair to us. Like, I have put so much in and what do I get? And it's like, it doesn't work like that. It's like you put the things in, and then when you feel that you've put enough in, you will feel justified in being able to receive. So this is the way they have us in the world, thinking that there's not anything for us to receive, and everything that we get, we should be ungrateful for. And we just have this bad psychological kind of like addiction to suffering. Disconnecting us further into the mindset of what is referred to as the devil. It's the self-serving side of sacrificing the light of the truth. The Luciferian intellect that disconnects us from consuming the best things for us.
Yeah, so some say that eating meat is, like instant karma.
Yeah, because you feel awful. It's like directly eating suffering. And it's one of the justifications that I've heard that negative entities have, is that if they see that someone is still consuming animals, then they can still look at that human being as an animal as well.
So, to kind of play devil's advocate, if this animal didn't go through any suffering as it was dying, then
I don't reckon that you've ever eaten an animal that isn't going through suffering. Just for as a preface there, but you're saying playing devil's advocate with it. For instance, there is. Are you familiar with persistence hunting?
I mean, as if you kill it without it even knowing about it. For instance.
The spirit is going to know that you're eating that body.
So it's like on the subconscious level, you mean?
Not even on a subconscious level, on a spiritual level.
On the sort of
chemical level that you
the higher self sort of thing. Would you call it?
Say higher self if you want.
The source.
If you take blood from someone and you inject blood into someone else, you take part of their spirit on. You now have a connection to that person. This is one of the reasons I don't give blood, because I do not trust where the blood's going to.
So do you think this is like a sort of quantum level then or something?
People can call it quantum. If you want to describe it as science, you can call it a quantum level kind of thing. It is spirit. It is energy. It is the same thing that has created what I look like. That wasn't just created like just genetics and just DNA. That was something that my mother and father connected over and created in their kind of like spiritual realm together. It's kind of like in the astral plane. People come together and have these things through sexual union. It's a really transcendent experience. A lot of people won't have sex in this way, and they'll use sex in a bestial way, and they'll suffer from it. They'll use it for pleasure, and they'll end up feeling disconnected from nature. The same way with eating processed foods. Once you eat them for long enough, you're disconnected from equilibrium. The body only knows balance and imbalance. All of the other stuff is jargon.
Yeah, because when people are, they do stuff so long, they become numb to it, don't they?
Yeah, desensitized. Normalization is precisely that. And this is something that we experienced through the flat earth stuff, definitely. That we know the stigma of the response to challenging that. So we just stick with the dogma, and it just comes out of us verbatim. We don't even think of it any longer. We just feel so awkward in that environment of having our belief structure challenged. I was like it before psychedelics. Before I experienced psychedelics in my life, if someone challenged my belief structure, my heckles were up, and I was ready to, I'm not necessarily like angry towards them, but I was aware that I needed to be aware of my viewpoint. Now I'm not. I don't need to be aware of my viewpoint.
Like a knee-jerk reaction sort of thing.
Yeah, like if I was an atheist in the past, and whenever I'd hear someone say something towards God, I felt it was my duty, my due diligence to interrupt and say that religion is awful and blah, blah, blah.
Well, I was a bit like that once when I think I was on a trip or something, but someone was going on about like being a religious person, and then I wanted to kind of, be like, and I'd have all the, be like, well, probably my main go-to ones will about the suffering and all that, and why is God allowing this to happen? And
so that's the thing there, that you're externalizing the soul, right? So what I was talking there, you've identified God allowing suffering as if it's a punishment, as if God gives prizes to people who do good and God punishes people who do bad. Whenever you set fire to a forest, this is neither objectively good or objectively bad. There's no such thing. This is
So, well, I suppose it's the only way for like free will to occur, isn't it? But it's like, but that doesn't prove that God exists either, you know. And I was like, well,
but again, as I said
it just
earlier,
didn't make any sense, and it was probably because of all the.
Remove the word God and replace it with nature. I used to have the argument before, but whenever I change it to that, there's no argument I can make against nature. When people say, I don't believe in nature, and you're like, what do you mean you don't believe in nature? Of course you believe in nature. Nature's the only thing you've ever experienced. So whenever people have the argument against God, you go, do you believe in nature? They can't argue against nature.
But nature and God are different things, aren't they?
Why do you feel that?
Well, nature is just naturally occurring. God is kind of
that's what I'm talking about.
Intelligently,
not making a decision. He's not dishing out. He's not dishing out judgments on people. When I set fire to a forest, the forest suffers. Would you say a forest suffers if I set fire to it?
Well, I have no way of knowing if
you do. How do you feel towards it? You're in a forest. The forest is on fire. How do you feel towards it, Jamie? Nothing. You just
I mean, it would be like gutted that the trees are burning and stuff, but we can't know that the trees actually feel anything unless you're a panpsychist or something and you believe that.
So for me, I don't believe necessarily that plants have a central nervous system, but I'm aware that plants are aware beings, certainly, and I can show you the scientific proof for that. But I don't like looking at things that prove them scientifically. You just
if that's the case, then maybe vegans need to think again.
But that's it.
Plants.
So you've created a straw man there of what you feel vegans believe in. I know many vegans.
No, I'm not saying that they do.
I know vegans that don't consume plants, though. That's what I'm saying. There's vegans that just consume fruit because fruit is offered to us, and that's what I feel is the perfect equilibrium, or a more perfect equilibrium, is where we care for the trees, they give us the fruit.
I didn't say that. I was just saying if that was the case, that that they did have kind of consciousness, and then vegans need to think again before eating them. Not that they believe that or not. So
that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that I think that I know some vegans do believe that, and I'm under the awareness that is the case. Like, see, seeds. I don't eat. I try not to eat. I look at not eating. Seeds.
What's wrong with seeds?
They're souls of plants. The seed holds the information for an individual plant to continue the life of that entire species. An individual pine cone has the ability to turn into a tree that can live older than you.
Yeah, because the seed is like planted, and then you wait until the fruits are ready to pick, and you eat them, and not the seeds.
Yeah. So
what about nuts? Is that the same thing?
Exactly the same thing. We shall know them by their fruit. We shall.
So why do people think they're like good for you then?
Why do people think eating dead cows is good for you? Why do people think eating eggs is good for you? Because they were told something. Why do people think that the earth is round? Because they were told it.
Yeah.
They're sold a fairy tale.
If most likely if we're taught something like is actually good for you, it's probably pretty bad for you.
I don't need taught that's good for me. I experience goodness.
If it's something that's like taught through media and stuff that it's good for you, then you should probably avoid it at all costs.
Yeah, pretty much. It's a good litmus test for it. It's not true in all cases, but it's a good litmus test. If the government has to be involved with it, you should probably just ignore what they're saying, and that's for the most part. But it's interesting because you can work out.
Yeah, and if it's being sort of like if it's like something that people aren't really aware of, then it's probably good for you, because it's like obviously the governments don't want you to know about it, so they'll try and promote this propaganda stuff like like the dairy industry and all that stuff, and it's all I mean, and thinking about it, it's kind of a bit disgusting, isn't it? I mean, not just bits, a lot.
It's very disgusting.
I mean, they say this is natural. These these raw meat, raw milk, and eggs. These people that eat these, as you say, it's what do you say? With these diets, they kind of they turn their bodies into fat burning machines. That's what they do.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is not natural.
not only is it not natural, it's not sustainable. Not only, I should say, the reason it is not natural is because it is not sustainable, and vice versa. It's not sustainable because it's not natural. If we do things that are in equilibrium with nature, we shall benefit from that. And it's not what we do to benefit from it. It's the only way that we can benefit from it. But there's no way to eat a bad thing and it be good for us. We can eat a bad thing and it be better for us, but it's still not good. Again, you can't have a definitive good or bad, but there's certainly worse ways to do bad things. Like if you murder an animal in an abattoir and a slaughterhouse after it's been suffering for years, that's an awful way to kill an animal. But it is still suffering to kill an animal with a gun somewhere. It's still not the natural equilibrium.
Because some kind of forces had to.
You've had to create a tool in there, and people go, "You need tools for everything. You're into this. You're into that." It's like, yes, because we fucked up, guys.
Well, I saw this argument against veganism. Veganism, the vegans they eat plants, so they'll just become a plant. Well, they're eating dead carcasses, right? So they're going to become a dead carcass. So you can throw it right back at them.
But
not that I don't eat.
But that's a good argument with it. Like, living foods for a living body, dead foods for a dead body. As far as I can tell, we still live, right? Our body dies long before the physical body dies. Like, we give up, and once we give up, we are very open to being another Agent Smith. We are quite happy to just go on the script that we are handed, that we've been handed by our parents, that we're handed by our society, the one that our parents are still pushing on us, or our grandparents, or society, blah 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 blah. It just goes on. We can go back into that. We can take the blue pill and we can that's fine. We've decided to take a few bumps of the red pill every so often, and it doesn't always benefit us because we're not taking enough, or we take too much and it doesn't benefit us because we don't know how to integrate. But the truth is there is a symbiotic nature that moves through all living things. I have experienced this as a part of that. The times that I've experienced this most of all have been on psychedelic hallucinogenics that allow the body to experience further levels of awareness. This is direct experience. This is realism. And people say, oh, it's not realism, it's just a chemical. We are chemical bodies. In the physical material realm, we are chemical bodies. And not everything can be quantified or qualified in a scientific methodology. It's not possible. And I'm not looking for that any longer. I have personal experiences that transcend that. So when someone has an argument against veganism, they can argue all they want. Like, fruit transcends them by a few thousand years. Fruit is a longer standing argument than they have. And they've not got energy to fight against a 500-year-old redwood or something, there's
this guy called Sverige, and he eats these raw meat. In fact, his video on his channel, I haven't watched it, but it's like apparently he's been eating 70-day-old raw eggs. It's like, and he's calling obviously that his diet the most natural diet, and it's like, is that really natural?
If that's who he is, it might be. That might be the most natural thing for him. That's not the being I am.
That'd be a subjective thing to some people,
You could say it's subjective. It is not species specific. We are frugivores. That's like, if you want to take it from a scientific viewpoint, and again, I do not promote this as a way of me living my life, and people go, oh, show me the proof. I can show you the proof. I can post a chart if you want. But if you just search frugivore chart on Google, you can see it. Humans are frugivores.
What does that mean?
We eat fruit. We thrive on fruit. So you've got herbivores that will thrive on vegetation. You've got omnivores that can thrive on meat or vegetation.
They have us think that we are omnivores, and it's actually not really the case, is it? Because it's only meant if it's like an emergency.
Yeah, and again, it's not an emergency. I used to think that, if I'm really hungry.
Yeah, because if we we shouldn't be needing to eat it at all, should we?
Let's throw it out this line. It might take a lot to kind of sink in with this. Starvation is not caused by a lack of food. When we die of what is called starvation, it is not because we have not been eating food.
So that's another lie.
That's another lie we have been taught.
That's literally fed to us.
Yeah, it's literally
unintended, of course.
But as we've been told, that's what I believe for years. It is not true. Not true. What I experienced in fasting, I can experience. I'm like, I do not need to eat. It's not necessary.
So how do you get is it you just get the energy from the ether, as you might call it.
The way I was not currently, because I'm not currently doing, the way I was fasting earlier this year was using a particular detox program. The protocol involves a lot of different steps. I won't go into detail here. I'll go briefly into it to explain a few things, but it is in order to detox. This is to get rid of the things in my body that are already imbalanced, that shouldn't be there, that are obstructing me, that I wouldn't be dealing with if I had grown up in nature, that I wouldn't have issues with if I had grown in a natural symbiotic relationship with my bioavailable environment. I grew up addicted to sugar, addicted to processed foods, addicted to technology, video games, disassociated, go through trauma, all these kind of things. In the process of doing so, really built up physically toxic things in my body, emotionally toxic experiences in my life, and spiritually negative forces that affect the flow of my existence. All of these things need to be detoxed, and all of these things have a long history, thousands and thousands and thousands of years. As far as human beings have a history, have existed different forms in order to detox the body of the things that are demons or the negative part, or a body is given up for some reason and you don't understand why. And I started researching into why that is. And through the detox process, it allows me to get into a state where I could feel if I was in nature, I could live this. So a lot of people jump right on the back of it and go, oh, if I threw you in the jungle and you lived there, would you die within a week? You probably would. I was like, I don't think I would die within a week. I think I would struggle though. And that's because of the culture I've grown up in. It is not because of my genetic code. It is not because of my cell. My seed can express itself in a variety of different ways that are much more beneficial than in a room with artificial lighting, sitting on a microphone with this augmented technology. This is not the best way for it. But we can take in energy from our environment without food. And if we are going to eat food, it should be fruit, as we thrive on fruit. Any other questions?
No, I'm just thinking that you're going on that technology. It's like, well, I don't see it as all bad, mate. It's just being used against us.
You've never been living in a healthy biochemical environment.
So what are you on about?
Imagine the most perfect vision you have of a jungle. Okay, the most beautiful, brightly coloured greens and tropical fauna and flora. Right? It's beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you've got fruit and it's there whenever you need it. You've got
but that's all we'd ever be doing is like we'd never actually progress to anything else. We'd just be like stuck in that mindset.
I missed that, Jamie. So what would you say?
That's all we'd be doing. We'd be stuck in that. I'm not saying that's bad or anything.
Stuck?
Well, I mean, we'd never progress to anything.
What do you mean progress?
Well, so that's what we were supposed to do as humanity, is progress.
Boom. They've got us again, hook, line and sinker. This is one of the things that NASA have embedded in our mindset as well. It's a false notion of civilized advancement. Civilization doesn't exist. Civilization's never existed. We've never been civil as a culture. Nothing civil has ever happened. There's always been people that have been really horrible, and then there's been people who have been even more horrible than that you don't see. And then you've got people like us that are just kind of kicking about the place trying to make sense of it. And the ones who make the most sense of it are usually top. And the ones who make better sense of it know when to shut up about it. And I'm not one of those yet. I still blabble on. But when we are out in the jungle and we are living in equilibrium, we thrive. But if we've grown up in this culture,
what sort of stuff we'd be doing then?
Living our life.
Like
we'd have a family, we would have friends, we would be living with animals, with nature, going
but what would we be doing though?
What do you mean doing?
Like, is that it? Is that it?
What do you want in an existence? Like, you can do anything you want in this world. Like, you can sit there and go, oh, where's the Xbox? Can we play Xbox? It's like, yeah, that's certainly something we can invent in a human civilization over however many centuries it can happen. That was just a thought one day that eventually accumulated into something.
Yeah, obviously, yeah.
So all it's doing is playing off of our natural experience. Everything that we are experiencing in video games that gives us a buzz is something that we experience naturally in nature that would give us the same buzz.
Yeah.
It needs to be. So we just do the things in nature that would give us the same buzz. But we don't need to do all these, see these adrenaline things? We don't need to do all these adrenaline busting things when we were living a life that's adventurous. Because life is just adventurous sometimes. You're climbing a rock face and you fall off and it hurts. And that sucks because now you've got a really bad leg and you end up having a bad leg for the rest of your life. And that was the thing, and it was an adventure, but it becomes a story in the tribe, and people give you comfort and awareness and empathy and compassion to towards the fact that they acknowledge you as an individual. Wonderful. That's not happening in the culture that I'm living in. I would rather have that. And you've got the idea like, what are they doing? What is Britain doing? I don't know what Britain's doing. I don't see what Britain's doing. I see them flaking about news stories every other day. I see shops opening and selling people like bread and sugar and milk and corpses. But once you step out, once you can acknowledge that scarcity is an illusion and we don't need food, you can see, oh, we're being lied to at every level, and they're just giving us enough rope to hang ourselves with.
Right.
Hope it's not too morbid, Jamie.
So, in your ideal reality, so no one would ever invent anything then?
Oh, what do you feel needs invented, Jamie? What would be a good invention in your mind? Or do you feel a good invention as it already exists?
Well, I don't know. It's just like,
Any invention you enjoy, Jamie? You're just drawing a blank.
I'm just like thinking, well, if so you'd have no desire to like ever come up with any new ideas or anything like that.
Well, new ideas for what? Like, people can still create. You can still make art. You can still build things if they're necessary.
Well,
and we can create because we can create. That's an expression of ourselves, and it's not about necessity. It's about creation.
Yeah,
that's great. Yeah, but we wouldn't need to do these things in order to preoccupy ourselves from the hell that we're living in. I wouldn't need to go and see a Hollywood film in order to distract myself from the fact that I hate my wife and my children. That's the society we're living in, and it's horrible. Everyone's just miserable all the time. And they don't need to be. They can change their habits and they can embrace new paradigms that allow them to be happy. They just need to remove the cognitive dissonance. And I need to remove cognitive dissonance as well. I'm still stuck in it. I'm still hooked onto the technology because I know that I am addicted to information. I like to be overwhelmed with information. The stuff that I'm learning of flat earth, I've not really learned anything new in the last 2 years for the most part, since I've just been looking at it. Not from the internet, at least. I look at it from the out and about. I consider what's happening. I look at it and go, this is my experience. Okay, it moves in that way. All right, yeah, I can see that. I can see how that wouldn't work in that way. And it makes my argument stronger when I'm having conversation with someone about the real world. They're so eager to get their phone out, or they're so eager, like, oh, prove it. And you're like, you don't need to. You can look up. Have you ever seen a planet between you and the sun? There's two. I've never seen it. Isn't that weird? And they go, oh, it exists. So does it? I don't know. So it's much more about people's personal experience. And this is the same thing that I have with nature. People's personal experience. When they're in nature, they're good. And they say, oh, where's the science to prove that nature's good? Science can prove nature's good if it wants to, but it shouldn't need to. People have experiences of nature that backs that up, like, fully, but we're living in a world where we can't let experience.
Well, I suppose, yeah, because people sometimes they overanalyze things, and
they think that they don't actually believe that nature is good for them. But meditation in nature is shown to be fantastic for the human body. It's one of the best things you can do. Walking around barefoot in nature.
Like, I've heard about that people should not really be wearing shoes, especially those with the
look at what
rubber soles in it, because they cut you off.
They have dressed us up like puppets, Jamie.
The Earth's circuit.
They have dressed us up like puppets. They have put us in clothes. They have put us in shoes. They have put us on the circuit. And we think it is revolutionary to think that being in nature naked under the sun eating fresh fruit is some kind of extreme radicalism. It's like, what? Every other animal on the planet, Jamie, is naked. We don't call them naked. We just call them animals. We just refer to them what it is. But we're the one that needs to define them. We started defining all these things whenever it's like, that's one thing I can bring into that, actually. There's a guy you can read into, Tony Wright. He does a lot of science off the back of eating fruit. And one of the things he looks at is the change in the creativity levels and the emotions of human groups with fruit. Or not human groups, like bonobo gorillas, I think it is. But obviously you can imagine there might be similar traits with bonobo gorillas and humans. But whenever we're living in a culture that is logical, like, so currently we're living in a culture that is very, very logical, Jamie. I think you would agree with that. It is so analytical. It breaks down everything into the English language in particular. We just live in where everything is being catalogued and broke down into this scheduled nonsense. Our lives are being bringing data like analog through things that they don't matter, but we're doing it for some reason. We have this paper trail that goes on forever and ever and ever about us that we'll never see. And the reason that this happens is because we've fallen out of equilibrium with nature. We've fallen away from the divine feminine. We've fallen away from what is symbiotically beautiful. And we've fallen into a place where particularly male dominance, but dominance in general, happens with dominance with women as well. But it is particularly in men that becomes an issue because the testosterone usually becomes an issue. And the men either start telling massive lies, become psychopaths or sociopaths, and start killing or hurting people within society through manipulation or neglect or flat out malicious intent. And this happens only whenever we fall out of equilibrium with nature. I don't think if we are in equilibrium with nature, psychopaths and sociopaths would exist. I think that would be a thing of the past. It's because people fall into addictive patterns of habit, into self-destructive patterns, that we end up growing and having emergent patterns of psychopathy. And we have it and we can see it at a cultural level. Like, you can look at it just from the point of view of like British humour. You compare British humour to like American humour. It's different because of the culture that Britain is living in. If what's going on in Britain, it has a certain way it comes across. It's not a happy people, and we've not been happy for a long time for some reason. Why is that? Well, we've been living with the colonialisers, right? And the colonialiser mindset, with this draconian manipulative English language, with dominators across the planet that we know we're being controlled by. Even at a subconscious level, we know we're being controlled by. Even the people who are like buying into it, they know. They're walking around with the Queen on their pieces of paper every day, making those contractual obligations. So they know it's happening. They don't want to pay attention to it at a deeper level. And that's fine. But what you were saying earlier of like the guy eating the like old meat and like the eggs and whatnot, it's the same thing with psychopathy. It's the same thing with people who believe in the heliocentric model, like beyond a doubt, right? There's some people that are always going to be there. Some people are going to believe the things always. And that's one of the things that I feel is a difficulty with the veganism as a political movement. They try and convert everyone to veganism. And I'm not saying that people converting to veganism isn't a good thing. I'm saying that you're never going to live, I certainly think in my lifetime, we're never going to have a society of people that is entirely vegan. It's not going to happen. Just like you're not going to have a society of people who someone doesn't lie, or someone doesn't watch pornography, or someone doesn't murder. It's not going to happen because we have been on this path of destruction for too long. It's going to take generations and generations to come around to something that is a more utopian state. And that comes from each individual within the society being in a utopian state, not the collective, not a group that is civilized it doesn't exist. That's not how it works. We can only work as a group when we understand there's no group. We can only work as a collective when we understand we are individual nodes and we only have free will over this node. But this node is everyone. This node has the ability to knock into everything, whether that is human being, animal, tree. And people go, oh, spirit, what are you talking about? Spirit in the seed. And you go, okay, whenever I plant my seed inside fertile soil, and that can go in both ways of when a man impregnates a woman, and when you put a plant seed in soil, you get the fruits of your labor. You see what happens due to what happens. You understand it. If a man has lived a life that is beneficial and he has the energy to produce a seed that is a powerful seed, he will have a powerful son. And this is not God praising that man for doing so. It is natural law. That man has consumed, say, nothing but fruit his entire life. He's never hurt an animal. He has never hit a person. He's never committed a negative act, and he's committed a lot of positive acts as well. Fantastic. Great. His seed is going to be a powerful seed. If a man's constantly suffering and he's constant stagnation and he hates the world and he thinks everyone's the reason for his problems, he becomes this like Ivan Scrooge kind of character, becomes the Emperor Palpatine, just really shriveled up and miserable and can't raise the Kundalini energy any longer. It's all about that, just a draining parasitic energy. He doesn't have that sexual drive any longer. No one's attracted to these men. No one's attracted to like the George Soros or whatever, like these Rothschild like creeps. They're not attracted to them, but they can still have sex with young, beautiful women because they can do anything they want because they're horrible people. And that's difficult, that's what we're living in. But they're not looking to procreate and have wonderful children. They're not looking to have a forest that is beneficial. They're looking to control and have hedonistic pleasures and among satanic like rituals. rules. It's a weird world we're living in, Jamie, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's certainly, I would say, leaning towards the moving away from meat is going to be beneficial for people. It's permissible if people want to do it. Like, it's up to them, though. It's not the society isn't going to be punished for you eating meat. You're going to be punished. Like, you're going to feel that punishment, as in, if you eat a bad thing, your body's going to respond badly. And people can make the argument, meat's good for you. Okay, they can show me the statistic, meat's good for me, just like they can show me the statistics of the gasoline that was used to travel to the moon. They can show me the studies that show me that meat is healthy and it's killed humanely, but I can watch the footage and I can see that's not happening. So it's like there's a dissonance between the reality of the situation and like what we are being like fed by media and ourselves, that we create this reality tunnel that we don't want to acknowledge the fact that animals are beings that have lives. They may not live like we do, but they have lives, and that matters to me. And people go, oh, you're ramming it down my throat. It's like, no, it sucks if you want to, like, I think it sucks if you want to do that. I'm not going to stop you doing that. If you want to be a murderer, murder someone. I'm going to stop you murdering someone if it's right in front of me, you know. I'm not going to let you murder a cow. But if you're like addicted to hamburgers and like that's your thing, you're going to get that. Like in the same way with like drugs, if someone's addicted to cocaine, I'm not going to fall out with them because they're addicted to cocaine. I'm not going to let them, they're not going to be in my inner trust circle because they don't trust themselves, because they're addicted to something that is causing suffering to their being, and no compassionate being causes acts of self-destruction. And these can be minor acts of self-destruction, and I've caused them myself. But this includes and is not limited to scarification, tattooing, cutting of the hair, piercing of the skin, eating food that is damaging for us, eating hot foods that are really, really painful for us, skydiving, things that are just like putting us in, like just like boosting the dopamine release, and release of like just all these chemicals that are like stress hormones, and going to like death metal concerts, all these kind of things. Yes, they can have really, really powerful effects in the body, and I'm sure people are going to argue tooth and nail to their dying day that they have the right to do these things, and they do. But whether or not it is beneficial is up for debate. And I have felt the damage doing these things myself, and I know I shouldn't be doing these things for my higher self. What's on your mind, Jamie?
Not a lot, really.
What you said before about the kind of like the suffering, the consuming suffering, kind of that on the kind of like the quantum level. But I heard a story of a guy who he hadn't eaten meat for like 24 years. And during a fast, he smelt hunger towards like the meat being cooked. And I've had the same thing during fast. First time in years I've smelt meat and I've had hunger pangs towards it. But I'm like, no, it's just an emotional response here. Because I didn't have it when I was just eating every other day. It was only when it was like weeks on end. And he ate after 24 years of not eating any meat. He had a chicken, and that night he had nightmares. Just an awful night for him. And he was just in a really bad emotional state because of it. And it's like, I totally get it, because animals pick up on that shit. If you've just eaten a hamburger and you go up and you try and like hug a cow, I think that cow's going to pick up on that. If you've just murdered someone, there's something about, I think I've met people that have murdered someone, and I can get that vibe from someone. I'm not going to stand up in court and like try and prove it or anything like that, but I think those kind of things stick with people. You know, when someone's like fought a lot of people in their life or had like really bad traumatic experiences, you can just get a vibe from them, from how they put themselves across, from how they express themselves through their language and their the kind of natural energy. And it's difficult to kind of like push away from that when you know that it's just programming, and so much of it is this programming, because you see people just going to shut down.
Yeah, I'm thinking about shutting down in a minute, so I have been
talking quite a bit, Jamie.
It's been a good talk.
Yeah, it has been good. It was nice meeting Joe. Interesting conversations with him. Got a lot of good ideas.
Yeah, he used to come on a while ago, but yeah, he had a break, so
yeah. I can understand it can be quite a lot. But I am interested to see something bigger happening, kind of bigger waves, but the bigger waves don't need to happen. I think that's one of the things we get caught up in.
Yeah, it's like we're hoping, it's like people are hoping to see some other celebrity maybe come out with it, but it's like it's got to be a grassroots thing, hasn't it?
Yeah, because it can be bought over so quickly. Like, but the whole thing with Joe Rogan is just like it's embarrassing. But that's the kind of thing it is. Like when you've got that amount of money that people are willing to lie about things, you can make it ridiculous. Next thing it'll be like Justin Bieber, and he's like, "We live in a flat Earth, guys. Like you gotta look at the firmament." You're like, what? What is this world we're living in? But yeah, it's got to be a kind of grassroots thing, and we've got to just implement it and integrate it into our way of living. That there's other things that we need to become aware of in our existence, that we are being lied to at virtually every level. And that there's no reason to trust any of the education programming we got. Even the stuff that's benefiting us. There's a lot of stuff that I'm sure is benefiting us in life that we're taught. It's just like, no, it's not the best way to go about it. But we will live and learn, Jamie. I'm sure we will.
Yeah, so you're welcome on any time, you know.
Yeah. As I said, I probably won't be around for the chat next week. Dell's chat, going away camping next week.
Yeah.
But I may be about following that and try and work out what other things we can talk about that can connect us to deeper realms of these things. That has been good, Jamie.
Well, I think, you know, when we were going on about how we're supposed to live, well, we don't even really know like the full picture of that, do we? Really, at the moment?
No. We just have to live how we can in the moment, from the highest level of awareness that we have available to us. We've got the internet. We might not have it for much longer. Keep using it in the ways that are going to benefit us.
Yeah, because it's like people are going to probably panic if something happens. So
yeah, they'll have 3D printers and people will start downloading guns and all sorts.
Oh yeah, that's crazy.
Bye. Take care, Jamie. And
yeah,
I'll
you
see
too.
you soon. Have a good night.
Yeah, you too.